Good evening, everyone. I wanted to welcome back Louis. Welcome back. I'm sure you look great. You lost some weight, so ready to. Yeah. Okay. Again, ready. I think you should start some health initiative in your department. I think everyone should go for a checkup. Right. um, Also wanted to start, before we start, I wanted to thank Nathaniel, who has been really working very hard to provide us with live streaming for the past almost 6 months, I would say. 8 months? 8, 9 months. And we went from Facebook. We've been live on Facebook, and many of the um, uh, meetings can be still viewed from months ago. Because some people did not have Facebook and wanted to have it on YouTube, he was able to work with us to get this done. And from tonight, all our meetings are going to be on YouTube, and it can be viewed live or afterwards. So I just wanted to give him a proclamation as a thank you. Come up. Um, so this reads, whereas it is my honor to recognize those civil-minded individuals who have dedicated their time and talent to effect change, and whereas today, July 16, 2019, Nathaniel Nasir is being honored for his work for the village, and whereas Nathaniel Nasir has given of his time and talents to assist the village of Great Neck in their initiative of transparency, and whereas a great community is only as great as those persons that provide exemplary service, whether through participation in volunteer program, through unique personal achievement in their professional and other endeavors, or simply through a lifetime of good citizenry. Now, therefore, I, Pedram Bral, Mayor, Village of Great Neck, do hereby present this proclamation to Nathaniel Nasir. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. So you're live for the first time on YouTube. Go ahead, Karen.
The first item are departmental reports. We have the building department reports. Superintendent?
Nothing to add.
Okay, the superintendent has nothing to add. And here to present DPW departmental reports, James, Louis, anyone?
First of all, I apologize
For the heart attack?
for
Don't let it happen again.
Listen, let me tell you something. That, in my mind, to begin with, I felt like I disappointed a lot of people in itself. I really wanted to be there for the election. I really wanted to be there for the crafts fair. That was a really hard thing for me to get over, getting through that, as well as the people of the community. So that was a little bit of a mind stumble for me to get past. With that being said, off the topic of the monthly reports, I did send my monthly reports in. Even though I was using my sick time, I did send my monthly reports in. I tried my best to get them done, even though I was out. But the one thing that I would like the mayor and the board to know, sitting up there, is you should be really proud to sit up there and take care of the people of this village, because it was unbelievable how many people of this village have reached out to me while I was in the hospital and even when I had gotten home. The first week, I didn't even want to look at my phone. This thing was blowing up. I couldn't even look at this thing. But I just want you to know that people on both sides of the fence, people that were opposing you and people that were for you, still reached out and wished me well, as well as previous employees and as well as previous administrations. So I think that you should be really proud of the village that you serve.
I am.
Thank you. And I have nothing to add on my report.
We're glad that you're healthy.
The first item in old business is 187, 195 Steamboat Road. Mr. Bloom?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Board of Trustees. Paul Bloom, B-L-O-O-M, 445 Broad Hollow Road, Melville, New York, appearing on behalf of the applicant, the United Machete Jewish Congregation of America. This is a community center. This board just recently made certain determinations on July the 2nd. Between that day and this day, we appeared before the zoning board. If you will recall, originally we required 5 variances. And as a result of comments that we received from the Nassau County Planning Commission, certain modifications to the plan were then made, which then resulted in reducing the number of variances that we required from the zoning board from 5 to 4, and the reduction of the degree of nonconformity of 2 of those 4 items. I'm happy to say, on behalf of my client, on July 11th, the zoning board voted and granted the variances that we requested. The only item which was not decided by this board of all of the other issues that this board assumed, such as site plan approval, parking waiver, etc., was the issue as it relates to architecture. What you are seeing up on the board right now, or on the screen right now, is the revised plan, which shows the removal of the 4th floor area, and also some modification of the materials associated with this new project. And so I'm going to limit my comments to those issues, or that issue, which is before the board this evening, and that is solely architectural review. We have been through this process for more meetings than I think I have fingers on my hand. We have chewed it up, we've digested it, we've modified it, we've appeared not only before this board and the zoning board on numerous occasions, but also have appeared at the Nassau County Planning Commission on numerous occasions. I think it's time this evening, with this one last item, for this board to determine to finalize this project, let it proceed, and let the children have a place where they can recreate. I'm going to ask now for the architects. I'm not quite sure which one is going to stand up behind me, so I'm not even going to turn around, to please present a definition of that which has been designed, and also provide to this board the materials that are going to be incorporated within this project. Oh, I got the big boss tonight. Yeah.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here again. And congratulations on the elections, and to some good years and some successful projects in the village. And I'm also happy to be here tonight along with you guys. I'm very proud to be part of this village and the village I live in, Kings Point. I've been a resident of Kings Point now for 35 years. By the way, my name is Mark Stumer. I am the principal of Mojo Stumer Associates. And before we get into the detail of this project, I want to go over a couple of points that are important to me. I live in this community, okay? It's very difficult to live in a community where you actually can be criticized for your work or complimented for your work, in most cases criticized. I'm very sensitive to the type of projects we take and the importance of good design. My firm has always stood for good design. You'll never see a project coming out of Mojo Stumer that doesn't have detail, quality, and it doesn't have a design meaning. We don't take it. When this project came along, I knew the sensitivity of it, and I was thrilled that we were chosen to be the architects because we knew we could handle it properly. We knew that we could create a building and create a situation that this would be a building that the community will be proud of, that will not be in anybody's stick out like a sore thumb, that will work and fit. It's a big building because of the size. There's nothing we can, say about that. In a sense, though, we've taken every concept and every design direction to minimize, keep it down, and create excellent architecture. We really have high hopes for this building in the sense of being a real standard for some of the quality that I like to see happening around town, like the bakery, which we just completed, which has been very successful, very well received. The redoing of Everfresh, which helped clean up that entire block, and the original firehouse, which is still standing and still, I think, one of the best firehouses in, I'm going to say, in the country. With that, I want to talk a little bit about the concepts of the building, and then I'm going to turn it over to my design associate, who's intimately aware of all the details, and he can go into a lot more with you. But the first thing that you don't really see from here is...
Mark, take the mic with you.
Okay. I also sing. Is we set the building back, okay? We set the building back off the road, not to have it in anybody's face or on the road for a main reason. As you're looking at the section of the building and the land sloping down, you're almost 6 to 8 feet, depending on how you go down the driveway. I don't know the exact terms. I think it's almost 11 to 7, higher than the low point of the building. So you're looking almost into the second story. We took the front facade and created texture to it, meaning it's not a flat wall. There's insets, there's notches, there's a touch of different materials, there's texture to it, there's pieces that come out, so at no point are you looking at just a flat elevation. We then added materials to the building like a chiseled brick, wood, metal, that are familiar materials, that are building materials. It's not an all-glass facade. It's not an all-metal facade. It's definitely not a gymnasium of all-brick facade. It has a tremendous amount of texture and movement, and what I'd like to say, total quality architecture. The basic concept, starting from the beginning when I started talking with Joe about this project, is it had to have definition of shadow and facade work, ins and outs, so that nobody feels they're looking at a major fortress type wall, or like when you see on high schools, you can tell the gym right away, it's the big building filled with all the brick. This we've tried to change. Again, and a most important point, we did not want it to look like an office building or a medical building. We wanted it to have character. So the basic concept, I think we carried out. I'm going to introduce Joe Iacobellis now, my design associate, who has worked, like I say, very intimately with me on all the details, and he can get into any of the finite details, and he's brought a materials board to review all the materials with you also. Thank you. If you have any questions, we'll both be available when he's finished.
Good evening. Like Mark said, my name is Joe Iacobellis with Mojo Stumer Associates, 14 Plaza Road, Greenvale, New York. Mark summarized everything, I think, pretty well here. So like he had suggested, I'll go into a little bit more of the detail, and I'm happy to answer any questions or elaborate on any areas someone may have questions. Just to add some specifics to the points that he touched on, the building is set back, in fact, 116 feet from the road. That was intentional, of course. We wanted to keep the building set back as far as possible. And in terms of the elevation and the height of the building, like Mark had mentioned, there's about an 11-foot grade difference from the curb height on this portion of the property to the curb height down here. So in siding the building, we dropped it on the lower portion of that. So if the elevation here is about 41, the first floor elevation of the building is around 34, 35. So it's sunk in 6 feet in the ground, which substantially, we think, lowers the impact of the height of the building and gives a much smaller appearance from the street.
Excuse me, what's the location of the building?
I'm sorry?
Where is it located?
In terms of
Steamboat
Street.
Road.
on
Street.
Steamboat Road.
Steamboat.
Yes, correct. Materially speaking, as Mark had alluded to, we provided this evening one of the only elements that hadn't yet been discussed was the detail and specifics on the materiality of the building. And like was mentioned, we really want to see this building as something special, something durable, something lasting, and something certainly that has the character and the nature that's, I think, worthy of a community center like this, a community building that people want to be proud of. There's no attempt to use cheap materials here. There's no attempt to save money or dumb anything down. What you see here in the actual materials we anticipate using, this is a chiseled limestone, a full slab material. This isn't a thin brick that's going to be glued to the building. This is an actual chiseled material that would have this texture and this character to it. And now we think this texture is very important because it helps in a lot of ways to reduce the scale of the building. If we just put up big 10-foot by 8-foot panels of stone, the building will feel oversized and overpowering. By introducing the smaller scale of texture into the materials, it brings things down a little more to a human scale. We similarly feel that the touch of wood on the building here provides that element of warmth. This is a composite wood panel, so this particular example is a high-pressure laminate. It is a material that looks and feels exactly like wood. From within a foot away, you wouldn't know it's not wood, but it's a material that will not rot, that will not decay, that will not fall apart in any way whatsoever. So there's an element of longevity here that we're looking for. So this building won't, at any point, be looking like it's in disrepair or falling apart. The metal panels up here are a patinaed aluminum metal wall panel, which you can see in these portions here. This is really an accent element, but it provides a little bit of character and a little bit of nuance to the design. And the remaining pieces that we're showing on here are the spandrel glass, which add a nice element of reflectivity and lightness to it, and the black aluminum storefront framing, which would be for some of the window elements. So the materials shown here are very consistent with what's been shown in the renderings, but we're happy to be able to show this in some more detail and discuss the texture and the quality that they bring. Hopefully that won't fall, hurt anybody. But other than that, like Mark had said, we're very proud of the building. We're proud of the scale and the texture and the quality of it. A great deal of work went into massaging the massing to really get something that we can be proud of in terms of how the structure of the first floor is set forward from the second floor with this indented roof terrace and this third floor element with the new facade treatment, all to create this variety that avoids, like Mark had mentioned, a big wall against the street, which we don't want this to look like the back of a Walmart. We want this to be a building that can be, make the community proud and really stand out. So, again, I'm happy to answer any questions or go into more detail on the materials of the design.
Just out of curiosity, the stones that you're using, they come in smaller, like a brick slabs, or they're large slabs that you put on? I know that you don't want to have the look of a huge slab. But just
so some of the details like that are still going to be in discussion as the plans are developed and budgets are explored and bids are received and things. The intention is, regardless, this would be a slab material that would have a texturing that's actually chiseled out of the slab. Whether this comes originally from a 4x8 panel or a 4x4 panel is yet to be seen, but the evident appearance of it would be based on these linear textures. Any joint lines where panels meet would be kind of secondary and wouldn't be as noticeable. So this would be the overriding texture that would be visible.
Is this going to be next to the existing Mishadi synagogue or replacing it?
This is going to be this is a new facility that plans on being used in conjunction with the existing facilities.
So truly next to it?
Not.
it's close enough. It's not next to it. It's close by.
Okay.
How does the aluminum wear? You talked about how the limestone wears. How does the aluminum wear?
It's incredibly durable.
I mean, in terms of, with exposure to the elements, does it change color?
Very, very little. I mean, more and more with the new technologies that we're seeing in a lot of the modern materials, especially when we're dealing with metals, all of the finishes are factory applied under really rigorous circumstances. There are no field painted metals that will rust or chip away. Any of these products are likely going to be coming to 25 or 30-year color warranties. There's a significant amount of longevity and durability to everything on the board here.
And that top piece on the center section, I'm not sure what the purpose is. Can you explain? Is it like
Just beauty, I think.
I mean, is there functionality to it?
The functionality is really more of an aesthetic capping of the building and providing kind of a capstone that would be treated as similarly to there might be a gable on a more traditional looking building, this linear element, we feel it helps to break up the massing of the building by creating a horizontal line that is distinct from this center massing here, and it provides a little bit of an offset of that proportionality that we feel provides a nice cap to it.
We wanted an identifying element from the road that calls out the entrance. So if you can see from here, which is difficult, we have a canopy that comes out here and a canopy that comes out here for the two main entrances. So that this element here, as you drive, building has to have a sense of entry. This element here gives us that sense of entry. Okay. Building has to have a sense of entry. This element here, the higher element containing the staircase, and it'll be cool because we'll have glass looking into the staircase. We'll create this sense of entry with the canopy coming out that defines the entry, and then this cap repeats some of the feeling of the canopies on that to end it, to give it a sky plane. I don't like buildings that just float into the sky. This ends. It has a cap, like a hat when the bald person wears it.
I know that this is what you look at after you enter to the entrance. It's not what you can see from the street, because from the street, just to clarify, there are trees that are pretty much blocking most of the facade. Is that correct?
Well, we have a buffer zone. We have a nice buffer zone between the street and the beginning of the parking, and we have a hill that drops down as the entranceway. We will propose, I guess, eventually there'll be a landscape plan. You could put trees here as high as you want. I know that probably even trees at that point will block a good portion of the building, because like we said, parts of this building will be 11 feet under the sidewalk level. So if you were 11 feet high and looking straight across at something, you're looking in almost to the second story. So you could almost block it. Will you block the whole building? No. Do we want to block the whole building? No. We're proud of the building.
Right.
But it will there'll be an edging, softening as you go, the layers as you go down into it. One other thing I just want to add that Joe said, the touch of wood on this building, the what we call the Trespa product, which is a really interesting new product, is to add a residential feeling to the building. So it doesn't look like an apartment building. It doesn't look like an office building. This touch of wood creates something that I think helps with the texture and brings a warmth to the building, which we like. And we're running that all around. Come over here.
And I really should say it's a beautiful building, and I do agree the wood has given it the warmth, and I think the limestone has given it the modern look that I think it's what many people are looking for. Any questions? Questions?
Where is the entrance? Where is the entrance? On which side of that stairwell?
The entrance into the site, the entrance of the building?
Yeah.
The main entrance to the building is tucked behind this stairwell. So the way the site and the drop-off were designed, the curb cut access into the property is on this portion. Cars would come around and either park here or drop off at this front lane, and there's like an open plaza area that would kind of welcome people into the building along this axis here. No.
And then you walk into the stairwell?
No, it's just, you walk in between the staircase. The staircase is out further from when you walk in, and you have to move to the left to get to the staircase. There's a space between the staircase.
And is that a door on the right-hand side there?
This here?
Yeah.
Yes, there's a door over there too.
So you can go in behind.
See that canopy? There's an entryway there, and there's an entryway down there.
There's no cover in that area, or is there? I mean, I can't see any covers.
So like
An overhang?
there's an element here that is projecting
that's-
out from behind this wall. That's like an entry canopy that people would walk in.
So that is the glass is set back by, let's say, about 10 feet or so?
Correct, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the name of the synagogue, Shari Tova?
I'm not sure yet. We just put some Jewish names on it. If you want to name it, we can.
sounds
If you
like a good
donate
name.
enough money, you can name it after whom you want.
Enough money, well, your name will be on it.
So how does it compare height-wise to, I had asked you this the last time, and you weren't sure. I had asked you the last time, how does it compare the height to the adjacent, homes and so forth?
So it's a bit difficult to do a really clean-cut assessment only because in the change of grade. And it's also worth noting that according to our application and according to the official calculation of the building, the height of the building is, I believe, 53.7 feet. But we have to keep in mind that that height is calculated per the village zoning, which requires that we take the the proposed grade all around the building. Now, the rear of this building, as you're aware, is dug out significantly, about 12 feet. So now what that means is when we calculate the average grade around the building, that's weighted against us in a way. So the starting point now is 6 feet below this elevation here, basically. So, we have to find the baseline that we calculate the height from, and the fact that the rear is dug out lowers that baseline, which in effect raises the calculated height of our building. In reality, when you compare the height of our building to the main parapet against the grade of the street, on this high portion here, where, again, there's about an 11-foot difference in grade from this side to this side, the elevation from the sidewalk to the top of the building is only about 40 feet. And then as the grade drops away and levels out in the middle, it rounds out about 45, 46 feet. So the 53 feet is really a function of having to calculate and compensate for the dugout rear yard. Now, in terms of adjacent properties, the grade over here does continue to raise. And if we look at a typical two-story single-family residence, you might be looking at a 18-foot plate height to the second floor and then a gabled roof above it. So you very well may have a 28 to 30-foot roof height. So in those terms, whereas this next house may be separated by 60 or 70 feet, we may be 10 feet above that house. But
Please understand too, on the site plan, the building was pushed to the far side, the Park Road entry side, where there are no residences, to keep it as far away as possible from the residences along the other side.
The lighting, you're not showing any lighting on the building or outside. I'm sure they're going to be.
yeah,
lighting.
there will be street lighting to, as per county requirements and zoning codes. There will be pole lighting in the site. And there will, of course, be lighting on the building as required for egress, and additionally, maybe perhaps some subtle lighting at some areas of access, correct? But we don't anticipate this building being lit up at night and being a glowing beacon. It would be a subtle amount of light as is needed for safe passage and egress.
Well, let's we can have the questions at the end if you don't mind.
Well, I'm asking a similar question as you guys are asking because we are explaining to everybody probably, right? So if I have a question, if I wait the last minute, probably everyone's going to forget about it. So, because everyone's talking about the elevation, the sections,
Mayor,
like to see
if I might.
so we can understand better.
If you can just wait.
Mayor,
wait,
if I
just wait a moment. Go ahead.
This is a presentation made to the board under the architectural review provisions, and as such, it's not a public hearing of sorts. And so this is to the board. The board can elect to hear public comments on this if they wish, or they might hold public comments at the end of the meeting. So it's up to the board.
I would like for them to be done with the presentation. As he mentioned, I think this is not a public hearing. We do have public comments at the end, as we always had. I just don't want this to go on for too long, but we will hear you. I know you're an architect and your opinion is valuable. So we will hear that question. Is there anything else that you guys want to mention that we haven't heard yet?
No, not at the moment.
And any questions from the board? Okay, we will entertain that one question.
But if I could,
Yeah.
I will just say we have provided sections. They've been presented at prior meetings that detail the different heights of the building from, I think, 3 different cuts through the building. So it's been detailed and discussed and submitted at
I mean,
several
if this is a
prior
question
meetings.
regarding the architectural, you can ask the question.
It's more than that.
Well, this meeting is only about the architectural review.
Well, section is part of architecture, right?
Come to the microphone.
We can come up and.
Architecture is more than just the material. I admire Mark's design, just like I've seen so many buildings he has designed in the village. Okay, I'm no question doubt about this architecture pieces at all. This is a great architecture, all the stuff here. But
Okay.
but I would say this is a great architecture in a wrong location. Okay, because everyone talking about the height, but we are not only look at the rendering of the facade of the entrance. Nobody pay attention to the section cut, which is cut, which has a lot to do with where you count the square footage, which we know this project is already overbuilt. And we keep coming back, and I know this already been passed as a variance, but the scale of this project is scary. So I would say this is a great architecture, but the wrong location. Everyone asking, even the board member just asked about the elevations. Without the section, how can you tell the elevations are right? Okay, so that's I can go a lot of detail right now, but if you don't give me time, I can come back later. But this is what I'm going to say. Yes, it's a great design by looking at this, but in reality, think about this in a wrong location.
If I could just answer, thank you for your compliments. But we've taken sections through the building at almost every point.
The mic, hold the mic.
We have taken sections through the building at every point. Right, and we, listen, you know, there's nobody saying that this building is not a large building, yet it houses the requirements that were given in the program, and it has been cut back. If you have all our site plan there, you'll see we have taken every measure to minimize the effect of this building against the community, against houses, and the height. It actually can be a very nice backdrop, a really nice backdrop to that whole site, and be a complement to the environment also. And that's what we're trying to achieve. Not a building that is offensive, but a building that will work with the site and the environment.
The engineering drawing, the section drawing tells me a few things. The engineering drawing in the section tells me a few things. Basically, if the section has not been changed that much from this old one, I can see the whole front is actually filled from adding dirt onto the existing grade to make that cellar to be a true cellar, which if the cellar is at where it is now based on existing section, that cellar may not be a cellar, then your square footage is going to be more over. It's kind of a double dip. I don't know which one is right or wrong. I also understand there's the water table issues here, so you cannot dig too deep. But in reality, this massing is way big than what you were thinking about it. And also the front parking lot, you got all backfilled. I know there's a lot of opposed so-called the dry well system try to take the water, but I don't even understand so-called the 50% permeable surface mean. All this parking lot, you're not gonna have a drain properly compared with the existing condition. No matter you say it's dry well, you have 35, I counted you have 35 dry wells, okay? And sorry, I'm not an engineer of that part. I just raised my question. So, again, I just want to say, this building is not what you see right now, okay? This building is a 4-story building, huge footprint in a small site.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes. Again, if this is only regarding the architectural matter.
I got it.
Okay. Then I guess it's free for all.
Name and address.
You can hear me, right? Can you hear me? Rebecca Rosenblatt-Gilliar. Yes, the architecture is not our concern. It's a beautiful building. I think we're probably even a little bit surprised that it's beautiful. And yes, I do know that, high schools tend to be built like prisons, where the central office is in the middle, and then you have all the prisoners in their there are classrooms around it. God, I understand that. I think the building's architecture is not the issue, and I think it seems refined and very well thought out. My concern, first and foremost, and it does really pertain, is process. So the previous Board of Trustees meeting agenda was posted in the late afternoon on the day of the meeting, and this is a violation of state law. And I'm not saying, I'm not talking about the application. I'm talking about process. You then conducted the public's business, and you voted on the community center, the public's business, even though the public had no notification. So you compounded the violation of law. The application you voted on and approved was then entertained by the Board of Zoning Appeals, whose deliberations were based on the illegal meeting and the illegal vote taken by the Board of Trustees. And you obviously see where I'm heading on this. I think the process has to be done, has to be absolutely adhered to. Law has to be abided by, and I'm not concerned as much with the application itself as I am with the violation of process. So there were offenses of laws, of other offenses as well. When residents in attendance at the meeting asked this board about the particularities of the application, the mayor and the attorney for the applicant, you stamped your feet almost in unison. You both claimed that this application had been under continuous discussion for a long time. In point of fact, the application in question had not come before this board since last year. So your claim of ongoing discussion refers to private conversations, not public deliberations. Last December, the Nassau County Planning Commission gave a sweeping denial to the application, and in response, but unbeknownst to the residents, the applicant revised, and then the board resubmitted to Nassau County Planning Commission, but none of us knew. So you didn't make this public knowledge, and then the revised plan, not any portion of the discussion between the Board of Trustees and the applicant leading to that revision, and not the Nassau County Planning Commission's second response, ever came to the public space until 2 weeks ago. And then it didn't come to the public space, then it was referred to. I've since foiled the Nassau County Planning Commission's second response, and it isn't quite as sanguine as was presented, but of course if we'd had it to read at the time, we would have known that and we would have been able to ask about it. The last thing is, forgive me for working from notes. Steamboat Road, take another look, please. Summer camp at 54 Steamboat Road is shutting down the road. In the mornings and in the afternoon, cars block both lanes, and there are only 2 of them. So you already have a traffic problem at 54 Steamboat Road, one of the 3 places that you're going to have a shuttle bus from. The shuttle bus, I can't even imagine how the shuttle bus is going to get through. And of course, on Shabbos, there is double parking, which blocks 1 lane of the 2 lanes of Steamboat Road, so that ongoing there has been a non-addressed traffic issue on Steamboat Road that has never been discussed either here or at the BZA to make this beautiful building something we won't all be angry about. I think that the traffic issue is crucial. The other thing is, it's got a swimming pool, folks. And we talked about that report from Nassau County and the federal government on saltwater intrusion. We've got two of our wells, our potable drinking water, that have been shut down so far. And obviously a swimming pool takes a huge amount of water. But none of that was addressed before. And I repeat, the architecture is not the issue. The issue is all of the things that should have been entertained on behalf of the community. And finally, of course, it's recreational, and it shouldn't come off the tax rolls. And I've seen the application form in our village hall, and it really shouldn't be fully off the tax rolls. I'm saying all this to you now because you can't have an illegal vote. Therefore, anything you decide tonight cannot supersede any illegal vote. You need to undo the illegal vote first and move forward. And the other thing is that, as far as I can figure out, you don't want this to become a conversation at the state level, because this is a violation you don't want to have on your record. I should remind you, by the way, for those of you who aren't as old as I am, that at least 2 mayors of New York City who had a third term found themselves accused of corruption and their administrations in that third term. This is your third term. I'm saying, oh dear. So what I'm saying to you is you want to, I'm sorry folks, what you want to do is avoid corruption, you want to avoid the appearance of corruption, and you want to undo the illegal vote and do the process properly, and then you can't be accused of anything. Thank you.
Peter, I based on my understanding, this was not a public hearing. It was a work session that was provided, and it was placed on the agenda. There are no hard rules of how many days in advance this has to be placed on. It's not a 2-week policy that we currently have for public hearings. And please correct me if I'm wrong with any of these things. So as far as going forward, and again, Rebecca, thanks for making comments that are going to divide the community even more. But I didn't interrupt you. I did not interrupt you.
Don't do it.
But if you are...
If you're going to say something good, say something good.
Well, listen. If you are going to have if a discussion needs to be if a discussion needs to be given a 2-week notice, the discussion is going to be given a 2-week notice. If something needs to be placed on the agenda, we have placed things on the agenda as soon as we can put them on the agenda. There's no hard rule, and no laws were broken. Now, to say that this is, what was the statement? That this was some kind of a, I don't know what the statement was, but whatever that was, extremely offensive. But regardless, this meeting, as I'm going to say, it's going to continue. This is not a public hearing, as I said before. This is regarding the facade and the architecture. Now, if there are any questions about architecture, well, we'll hear it. But if it's anything about things that have been done by the Board of Zoning, about the height variance, side variance, all those other stuff, you had your chance to go to BZA and discuss it. It's beyond our scope of discussion tonight, and we're going to talk about the architectural presentation, and that's pretty much it. And if there's anything that is going to be against the rule, against the law, I'm sure Peter would have mentioned and stopped us.
Mayor, just to expound further on that, on your statement, this in fact is not a public hearing. It has never been a public hearing. There have been discussions. The board has heard the public, but it has not been a legal public hearing under New York State law, and that's not required. Public notice with regards to board meetings is required, but public notice is required to be provided with regards to time and place of the meeting scheduled at least 1 week prior thereto, and shall be given to the news media and shall be conspicuously posted in a designated public place. That is with regards to the time and place of the board meeting, not the agenda.
Thank you. Okay. If there is, again, it's about the architect, okay? You can ask about the architecture. There's nothing, we're not discussing the site plan, we're not discussing the variances that were given by the BZA.
No.
It's only about this. You can go ahead.
Zip it. Hi. When are you going to do the courtyard? Yeah, you're holding back. Okay. The windows there, are they bird-proof like we did at the library on Bayview Avenue, so the birds, when they get reflection, they don't fly straight and kill?
Yeah. Gene. In general, the comments are to the board. But
Oh, I
but you
thought
can
you-
ask us. I know.
Okay.
Okay, you can
But
ask
you-
us and
You might not understand it.
I
like we
well
will.
if I don't I'm sure
Okay.
I'm going to right.
When we did the library on Bayview, we specifically asked if the windows could be bird-proof, where when the birds are flying, they don't smack into it like that and kill themselves. And the library did it, so we don't have a problem there. And these windows, could you ask him whether they have that film on?
Well, we can put better than that, they're set back at an angle.
No, those big ones there.
These big ones here
Yeah.
have.
No, no.
No, the
in
big
middle.
ones.
Yeah, we can put a film on those too.
Yeah. So that's, that's good. See, if we hadn't have asked, we wouldn't have got it, right?
It would be my pleasure.
Okay?
Thank you, Jean.
I'll wait for him to finish.
Yes.
Yeah, he said he's going to do it.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
The other thing is, the public, quite a few of us, has asked for the secret plans on this building. It seems to be a problem getting them. And in the old days, we used to be able to come up to the building department, just fill out a little piece of paper, name, address, what we wanted. They call it foiling. And Jeff or Ken, whoever was there at the time, they would just go, or Sheila, they would go, get whatever plan it was you wanted to see, hand it to you. You'd look at it, hand it back. We can't seem to do that. And I really think until some of us
They're
have
online.
seen,
They are online according to Karen.
this is what people are saying, they
Yeah.
have a problem,
They
that
can
it's
still,
not on
you
the
should
web.
be able to also, if you would like, rather than go online, you should be able to go into the clerk's office and request that.
Well, I did call you no, excuse me a minute. I called you yesterday morning. Did I?
It was yesterday, 2 days ago, I don't know.
Yes,
You did
I
say, "Come on in."
I called you yesterday morning, and I said it's very hot out, and I didn't want to walk up to the village hall if I wasn't able to get the
That's why I use
plans.
the internet.
Wait a minute. I don't use
That's
the
why I use
internet.
Karen,
I don't
can
use
you
the YouTube.
print them?
Yes, sure,
Okay.
they're printed.
You want to
And
print?
wait a
You want to
minute.
pick it up
No,
tomorrow?
Wait a minute. Let me finish, because you're doubting my word, and I don't like that. What was your response? Len was out at class for the day. Excuse me, and I would not be
But
able
this
to
is
get
the
them.
you cannot address. You address the board.
I'm addressing the board then.
Yes.
I
My
asked for-
question
I
to you
asked for
is:
the
would you
plans
like?
So I could look at them for tonight.
Would you like
a
a
bit-
copy?
Not unless you're going to hold this meeting over.
This meeting
so
is
that
not about
people-
the secret, as I said. It's only about
No,
this.
But we would have liked to have seen them before this meeting.
Well, it is online.
Please, Karen, do not say that I lie. I'm too old
No, it's
to
no.
lie at
She's
my
not saying
age.
you lied, but it's okay. I think.
Well, you are doubting there.
Okay.
No, I'm going to get this clear now. I specifically asked yesterday because I just said I didn't want to walk up in that heat and find I couldn't get them. And I was told Len was at a class, Len Barron had them, and he would be out for the day. Do you remember that? No.
I don't know.
Okay, let it go. I just want you to know there are other people too that haven't been able to get it.
But you know, you have to, again, it's simple to get it from online. If you can't, you can ask someone to download it and print it. That's available. But if you want, I'm going to ask her to have some copies available tomorrow. If you can have 5 or 10 copies sitting in front, so people that would like to can come and
Thank
pick them up.
Thank you. And, what was it? Okay, so we've got the windows settled, that's good. And I'll let it go at that. Oh, I thought this meeting tonight was just on the shuttle bus.
No, it's on this, but they're going to discuss they were
They are
going to
gonna
say
do the
something
shuttle
about the
bus
shuttle bus.
tonight.
Again, it's not earth-shattering. It's just a shuttle bus, but they're
No,
going
but
to
that was from the last meeting, they were supposed to present the
Okay.
shuttle bus.
they're going to mention the shuttle
Okay.
bus. All right.
I just want to go back to, now that we've been instructed on the law, I wanted to know, are you saying that in fact, boards of trustees don't have to post an agenda at all? Boards of trustees don't have an obligation to the community to let a community know what's coming? on the agenda? What exactly is this that says you have to post the time and date? Is there not some, what is it called?
I would direct you.
Is it
gener-
substance? Is it
I would direct
tradition?
you-
What is it we do?
I would direct you to the Committee on Open Government, but beyond that, I would more specifically direct you to General Municipal Law 104.
How about the Open Meetings Law doesn't say that the Board of Trustees should provide us with information about what's going to be discussed at a meeting?
I would love to discuss this off the record. I won't be able to
Okay.
give you legal advice.
So I
That
guess
being
maybe
said-
really what I'm saying is, if you can say back to me that this is in fact a legal process, you can have a meeting, you can post it any time. If it's not a hearing, we don't have to know what's coming. If we want to show up, we can. If not, we don't have to show up. Isn't there some kind of moral obligation to the community that you serve? If it's not a legal obligation, isn't there a moral obligation to have an agenda posted in sufficient time for the rest of us to know what's going to be discussed?
See, Rebecca, before 9 months, no one could see anything online. It wasn't our obligation to have anything online for people from all over the village, state, and even outside to actually observe what's going on in our village. If you want transparency, that's transparency. You can sit home and watch exactly what's going on in our village hall. So there's nothing that we're trying to do to hide anything. If I wanted to hide, I would not do Facebook. If I wanted to hide, I would not go from Facebook to YouTube so everybody who doesn't even have Facebook to be able to watch it. So, stop this.
I think
Trying to say that we're
I
trying.
love what you're saying, but it's off the topic. The topic is, we post a meeting agenda.
We did post
and
a
either
meeting,
it's
okay.
posted so we can know what's going to happen in sufficient
nothing
time to
done
make plans to
illegal.
show up.
Right. There was nothing done illegal, and a lot of people showed up.
Okay, so
Ju- just
fine,
for the
now
sake
that,
of
so now
clarifying-
that you've corrected it and you've said it's not legal, my point is that there is no way that this village should have an agenda posted 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock on the afternoon of a meeting, because no one has time to plan to show up at the meeting. And if the agenda doesn't in fact say everything that's going to happen at the meeting and isn't posted in time, we can't take part. So you
So
can
we are doing our
proclaim,
best.
but you
We
can
are-
proclaim transparency, but if we can't show up, then something is
Well,
missing
you don't
in the
have
process.
to show up to see. It's online. But
To
that
take
said,
part, yes.
that said, we are doing our best to have everything by Friday.
Having, say it again?
To
I'm
have
sorry.
all the agenda posted by Friday.
Okay,
Thurs-
that would be wonderful.
So
That
we
would
had
be the way it
this.
used
We
to
had
be.
this. We had this was on Friday. So this
So it's a
agenda
hit or
was
miss? We're gonna try for Friday, right?
No, we've been trying to put it on Friday. Most of the cases have been put on Friday. If there's an issue that it's not on a Friday, then it's going to be on a Monday.
Okay, so we're going by general meeting law, not by the
I would-
open meetings
I
law?
would clarify, my apologies, I meant Open Meetings Law.
Okay,
Open Meetings
thank you.
Law 104.
Thank you.
Just from a professional decorum standpoint, I think for the village attorney to laugh at members of the public who get up to make comments or to speak their mind is really inappropriate. Anyway, I think that part of what the board is considering today is whether to approve certain conditional or special permit uses.
No, that's not it.
That's not within the
No.
architectural
No.
analysis
No.
that you're doing
No,
today?
that was done already.
So under zoning law 575.170.9,
Okay, so I want to tell you,
you're not...
all those things are done already. The zoning board has voted, and all their variances have been given. They are just here to discuss. The only thing you can really discuss, if you like to, and again, this is a board meeting, and this is really a work session, not a public hearing. The difference between that is the board looks at the design, questions the design, gives ideas about the design, and we approve the design or give suggestions. This is not about the zoning, this is not about the dry wells, this is not about the traffic, this is not about environmental study. All those things have been done and approved already. So if you have a question about the presentation, you're more than welcome to ask, even though this is not a public hearing. We would like to welcome questions. But if it has anything to do with zoning, with tax laws, with dry wells and traffic, those things have been addressed already.
Right, and so I guess you take questions because the dialogue could inform your decision. Is that the thinking?
About this, yeah,
Sure.
if you
Okay.
like to.
And so is part of this, the analysis today, whether or not the project contributes to the proper growth and development of the community and its general welfare, or that's part of the zoning analysis?
That's the zoning analysis. This is only architectural review. If you like the design, you don't like the design. For example, what Jean asked about the birds flying into it, I thought that was an appropriate question, because if it's something that they need to change about the glass, that they need to know. But that's the design. But it has nothing to do with the growth of the population or the environment. All those things have been addressed and approved.
Okay. Circling back to a point that I think Rebecca and Jean were making, the environmental impact statement. We've been told it's online. We've been told that it's accessible. And we've been told that no one's hiding it. And I believe no one's actively hiding it. But it's not online. I know how to navigate the internet. And I'm wondering how we can get a copy. A FOIL request was made.
I just told her that I told Karen. She's going to have 10 copies available tomorrow morning by the desk, so you can pick it up.
Of the EIS. Okay, great.
Just to clarify, there's an EAF. The board did not require an EIS.
It's called an EA. What does EAF stand for?
Environmental assessment form, as opposed to an environmental impact statement.
And then,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear what you said.
I said the board did not require an EIS.
Use the mic.
The board did not require an EIS.
This board or any board?
This board.
So a zoning board does and this board does not?
I don't understand the premise of your question, so I can't really give a correct answer to it without knowing what you're asking.
Okay.
all right, I don't want to get too off topic, but I believe that you're the attorney for the village. So two quick questions there. It was indicated that you've addressed Nassau County Planning Commission's concerns. And so
Jenny,
you believe
this
you've
is
addressed
regarding
them, but
this.
has Nassau County concurred that you've addressed their concerns? Like, is there
Yeah,
feedback from
it
Nassau
has-
County
it was
that
sent.
that you've
Okay.
adequately addressed the concerns?
So again, I'm going to answer that question, even though that has nothing to do with architectural review. I'm sure you understand that architectural review is very different from the questions you're asking.
I don't. That's why my questions are broader. than you would
Architectural
like. I don't-
review means look at the design, critique the design. That's what it is. But I answered that question. When they came to us, we have to send their request to Nassau County Planning, and they make suggestions. They made certain suggestions. I believe there were 9 suggestions, if I'm correct. 5 suggestions. Those 5 suggestions were corrected by the applicant, sent back to Nassau County. Nassau County reviewed those changes and said that it's now the local determination, that they are not going to object anything. They're letting us to make the decision. After that, they went to BZA. They got their variances. This is the final stage, has nothing to do with the questions that are being asked. I would give a credit to Jean, because Jean asked a question that had to do with the architectural
I'll
design.
switch gears to something on the agenda, the shuttle bus. Who pays for the shuttle bus?
It's who pays for it?
Yeah.
They do.
The developers and the landowners, the Mashadi Center, they pay
Yeah.
for the shuttle bus to go
Yes.
from parking lot to the
Yeah.
Mashadi Center? And then, only because it came up, and then I promise I'm done. The Nassau County saying, okay, this is now for village board review. That's not necessarily them saying that you've adequately met their concerns, right?
If they wouldn't, they would ask for more.
Is that in writing, their sort of response or decision there?
So just to further clarify, there were 3 indications of interaction with the Nassau County Planning Commission.
Right. I missed one.
The initial discussion we sent pursuant to General Municipal Law 239M. We sent referral to the county as is required. They said, please provide us with more information. we reached out to the applicant and said, please provide us with more information to provide to the county. The county, once the applicant did that, we forwarded it back to the county, at which point the county made 5 comments. The applicant responded to those comments with an amended application to this board, and an amended application also to the zoning board. At that point, we re-referred it to the county, and the county, after holding a public hearing, an actual public hearing, in Garden City, rendered a local determination decision, which essentially means municipality, we've reviewed this, we have no issues with it, or we don't have any significant issues and foresee any reason why this should be halted. Please make a determination as you see fit. And so there are 3 Nassau County interactions. I'm telling you this not to bore you, but because freedom of information law requires specificity with your request. So if you say seeker information, that's not specific enough. You have to say you want the EAF, you want Nassau County's 2nd determination, 3rd determination, and that way you can give us information that we can then respond to your requests.
And so my question was, I appreciate the extra information, that's helpful. My question was that determination that was made at a public hearing, so I take it there's a transcript of that determination that could be obtained.
That would be obtained from Nassau County.
The
so you would have to
decision
FOIL
is
that from Nassau County.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. But just to clarify, the decision is, we have a copy of the decision, the village does. So you can FOIL the decision from the village.
Sorry, Andy, again, I just want to do one last question. Okay, since looks like you guys going to approve the architecture, it looks like to me. So, I think the last guideline, last guard for the community is going to fall onto the hand of the building department, making sure everything in the drawing calculation is correct. Okay, because my concern is this. The mean grade is about 29, okay? If you use that as a starting point, making sure the seller is the real seller, which doesn't contribute to the true square footage, okay? Otherwise, you can get a 4-story building, you got overbuilt square footage, okay? And how the drainage got done, I wish the building department do a good job. So, which really try to protect everyone of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Mayor, could we make one further clarification?
Yes.
The question was asked who was going to pay for the shuttle arrangement, and the answer was the developer, but...
It's not a developer, it's the community.
Correct. I think it needed to be clarified that the tenants ultimately pay rent and amenity fees to the landlord, and they will even be separated out so that you can identify the shuttle fee cost versus...
no, but that's a different...
I'm sorry, I'm mixing up...
yeah, I'm mixing
okay,
the
so
next one.
I apologize. I'm looking at the wrong shuttle agreement.
Right. No,
the community center, the applicant in this case, would be footing the bill for this shuttle.
Yes. Okay.
Is that correct, Mr. Bloom? Not to put you on the spot, but...
I have 3 architectural comments, but before that, I just want to say thank you for making the SECRA environmental assessment form documentation available tomorrow. The documentation should have been available before the Board of Zoning and Appeals meeting, but it was not available on the...
online.
No, it is not, ma'am. And I checked it.
Don't-
And if someone with my level of proficiency can't find it, then it is not effectively accessible. So
I'm
it is
looking
not...
at it on the
Well,
website right now.
It
If
is
you do a
effectively not
search-
available to the community. And
Well,
freedom of,
it's a
in
matter
fact,
of
I do not want to argue
user
the
error.
point. All I can say is that I looked for it and I did not find it. And it should have been made available for the BCA
Listen, you know what?
hearing.
I wanna,
But let
if
me
you
go to
can't-
the
I wanna-
architectural points.
Just one question. I don't like this to be an argument between the public and the board. I am looking at it online. If you can't find it, it doesn't mean that it's not there. It means it may be difficult to find, but it's there. I can show it to you
I
here.
do not want to
If you
belabor
go
the
to
point. I'm
agenda,
sure you're looking
if-
at it right now.
If you go
But
to
if I can't
agenda,
find it,
I'm
it is
explaining
not
to you
easily
how to get to
accessible.
it. Okay, if you go to the agenda, if you go to the okay, if you go to the agenda and you extend it back to October 2018, which is when we had the first meeting, and you do a search on the text SECRA, it will show up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
For the three architectural points, one,
Yes, go ahead.
the building is not in character with its surrounding uses. It's surrounded by single-family homes, and the scale of the building is out of character. Second, the building relies on parking lots under the control of the sponsor, apparently on the same roadway, Steamboat Road. The rendering did not show any sidewalks, and
Did not show
any sidewalks, any
Sidewalk.
public sidewalks. It is not clear how people who would park on the other lots will get to this site, and if that does not present
That's
a
not part of
public
the
safety,
That's not part of the architectural review, though.
Okay, the design is
The
does not
design
include
does not, right, the design is the design of the building,
Okay.
not the design of the
not the site
sidewalks.
plan is not
No, the
included.
site
in
plan
that?
is already done.
Okay, typically it's considered in design, but if it's not, it's not. That's fine. And third, the site is an ecologically sensitive area. It is right behind Kings Point Park. It is in the Manhasset Bay watershed, and it is part of the Long Island Conservation and Management Plan. It's not demonstrated in design that the design is ecologically responsive and that it is not causing an adverse impact on the natural resources on the site and adjacent to the site.
Right.
Thank you.
Right, so those are not architectural review, those are site plan, and they were discussed in the previous meeting, and those concerns were addressed.
So this is not going to be a question. I'm just trying to seek advice from the board as well as
Just give me,
the
what's your name and address also?
Zhang Huang, 100 Fairview Avenue. So I understand many things have been done already, this and that, you guys mentioned a lot. I just try to seek advice for villagers who are against this application. What can we do at this point? Is there anything we can still do?
Well,
Is your
you're-
answer
you're
nothing?
against this application?
Yes.
For what base?
Like, if you are going down that route, then I would ask, what is the basis for you to
No, that's not. listen,
approve
no,
this kind of application,
no.
right?
Your question is you're against it.
Yeah.
My question is why are you against it?
Well, there are many
No, that's
concerns
not-
I hear
no,
from,
listen.
right?
You are against this project. Why are you against this project? Forget everybody else. You said that you're against it. Are you against it because other people are against it, or are you against it because you're against it?
So, I am against it. You can, for example, if you say this is a nice building, nice architecture, then we should accept into our community, then you can think of many other nice architecture, nice facilities that you can bring in, right? We can imagine that if we can have some donor putting in a museum of modern art or something into Great Neck. Why it's not such a good thing? What's your criteria for approving such kind of application, right?
Shh, guys, please. You see, he has a question, but
I'm seeking advice at this point
But
for those who are against this. Is there anything we can do at this
you
point?
have to tell me why you're against it, and I can possibly advise you.
I'm just trying to see according to the procedures and rules, because I understand many steps have already passed, right?
All the steps were done according to the law.
Okay,
So for
I
anyone
understand.
to
I
come
don't-
and say that this is
I don't question that, right?
So my question to you is again, you say if I'm against it, what can I do? So my question to you is why are you against it? Don't you? Look, so I'm gonna, you know what? I give you multiple questions.
Things I can
give you
do
multiple
depends
questions.
on why I'm against it. Is that what you're saying?
So, but yes, are you against the architectural look of it? You don't like the way it looks?
I'm questioning the fundamental reason why such a facility, recreational facility, is approved to be in this particular location.
Right. So I explained to you how things work and what our job is. We don't go and seek applicants to come to us and say, do this in this location, build this house in here, build this community center here, the church here, synagogue here. We don't go and ask people to do it. They come to us with a request, and they say, for whatever reason that they have, they present the reason. The reason is then considered. There are laws that are placed that allow things as such to be built in those locations. This is not getting built against any law. There are variances that are given. Those variances are given by a board of zoning.
Yeah, again, I don't question any of that.
So my question is, when you say you're against, if you come and tell me, you know what, this is a horrible looking building, I am against it because this will, the birds will fly into it, and we have these birds that are, let's say, for example, there are about to be,
there are many reasons. I don't want to go to the reasons right now because you are not allowing people to comment on things. For example, the water quality.
You know what? For me
traffic,
to hear you,
right?
I'm sorry to say, sir. You see, I am listening to you. I'm trying to even help you ask questions the proper way. So you telling me I'm not allowing you to speak?
My question is very simple. If for those people who are against this application, for whatever reason, are there still things that are doable according to the law to reverse
if you have
the application?
If you have a reason, address the reason, and we hear it.
So you said this is not a public hearing.
But I'm listening to you anyway, aren't I? I'm listening to you, aren't I?
But I'm saying...
Tell me, why are you against this building?
I'm against this building because the burden it could create on the entire Gwinnett.
How?
Traffic burdens.
Okay, so...
That's one. There are many others.
Good. So you're saying traffic burden. They did a traffic study that shows that the burden, even though this is not the discussion, but out of respect for you, I tell you, the traffic study showed that this is not going to cause significant impact. That not no impact. It's not going to cause significant impact. Now, this is not a public hearing, and we are hearing everybody who has to say whatever they have to say. So for you to come and say that I can't say anything after speaking for about 10 minutes here, it's not a fair statement. I welcome you. I know this is the first time you're probably here in the village hall, and I don't want you to get deterred not to come back. I want you to come back.
Okay.
But one thing you have to realize, don't come and say, I'm against it because I've heard other people against it. I don't know why I'm against it. How can I protest this?
No, I'm just saying for people who are against it,
okay,
what can people do? I may even say ask this question not from my own perspective, just procedurally. Are there things people can still do at this point?
At this point?
You can simply say no. That is also a valid answer to this question.
No, but you said for future you want to know. You want to know in future how you should do it. In future...
For this particular case.
For this particular case, the only thing you can say that will deter us here, because we are here only for architectural review, if you say something that is horribly wrong with the architecture.
No, not for today. I mean, just for...
Well, this is...
Not for this particular meeting. I'm just
not
in
for
general.
this particular project. So let's say this project is done. Another project will come in. When you come in, if you have a valid reason, whatever that valid reason is, we'll hear you. And we have pulled things off the agenda.
I know people have missed that opportunity just for this particular project. That's done already. Your answer is there's nothing we can do at this point. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay, thank you. No, thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Okay. I think we have to stop this. We're stopping this at 9 o'clock. Go ahead.
I have one question for the architect. I'm looking at one of the sites.
What's that?
Name and address.
Kelly Cunningham, 1 Center Drive. I live on Steamboat Road. I know the traffic there, and it's a mess already. This has a high possibility to create even more of a mess on Steamboat Road. And I'm sure you're aware of that. We need to address it. But what I want to ask the architect as well is, I'm looking at a plan here that shows part of Kings Point Park. Well, okay, either way. I'm looking at a plan that shows part of Kings Point Park and additional parking area. Is it off? What is the deal with that? That's what I'm asking.
These are the parkings. I don't know what you have from, is that?
Well, it's from your documents, and it's the
is
documents
it new or
that.
is it from the past?
It doesn't matter. We can't find new ones. I can only find the ones that are from the past. I don't have a new rendering like this that shows it without.
Show me what rendering you have.
This one, where it shows a whole aerial view.
No, that's not it.
Okay. And what about the secondary access aisle? What about that road, which actually is the road into Kings Point Park?
They're not using that.
They're not going to use that. So how are you entering the site? Okay, I'd love to see it. Yeah. And I will be here to pick up the EAF tomorrow.
Can you just print it and just put it on?
We need it. And it's all right to be able to review it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay?
All right. It's online, by the way, but if you...
No, I got to tell you, I don't want to be rude to you. I understand the predicaments you guys are in, but I've scoured your website and every agenda. In the EAF, I have every document. I printed out every document. If you have the EAF full form, that's great. Go print it now, Karen, because I have gone through your whole site and have not been able to find that one particular document, and I have printed out several documents, okay? So that's fine, Karen. You can find it, then go give us all a copy, okay? Right now. Otherwise, we will be here tomorrow to pick them up. Thank you.
Okay, I hear no more comments. Any questions from the board after hearing? Any?
Does the board wish to, well,
We should discuss it? It's not finalized. Okay.
does,
Yeah, we can just vote for this. Okay.
Does the board wish to entertain a motion with regards to architectural review?
Yes.
Motion to approve? Yes. Moved by trustee Hope, seconded
Second.
by trustee Namdar. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
No one can hear?
With respect to the question of the shuttle service.
Use the mic.
With respect to the question of the shuttle service, a draft shuttle agreement was provided to council. There were modifications that were suggested. There were additional modifications that were made. I believe that this afternoon a draft was sent over to council. I do not know whether or not the board has had a full opportunity to review the shuttle agreement. That being said, we provided an agreement which is enforceable by this board, it should be noted. A shuttle service will be provided, which is going to be between all three facilities. As we have stated on numerous occasions during the course of the hearings, that the parking will be provided in three separate locations, and that we are now spreading the same number of people over three facilities as opposed to two facilities, which also ameliorates the issue associated with many of the questions raised this evening, notwithstanding them not being on the agenda. We have this proposal where we are providing the service that is going to shuttle people between the three facilities so that they can park at one and be brought to another. They can attend some sort of event at one and be brought to another, and then brought back to their original location. So if there are any questions, modifications, suggestions, or issues that this board has with respect to the last draft of the shuttle agreement, we'll be happy to discuss it this evening. I'm not quite sure that it is a decision, if this board has not had full time to understand or to absorb all of the concepts that we have included, that it is a matter of either a public hearing or a meeting. This is a condition that this board has imposed, that we in fact enter into a shuttle agreement with respect to the 3 separate locations that are intertwined with respect to parking and also use. And so should there be some modifications or changes that this board is seeking to achieve, it is certainly a topic that we can continue a conversation about. There is no building permit that is going to be issued here if this is a condition of approval prior to the time that an agreement which is acceptable to the village and also acceptable to the applicant will be entered into and executed. And so, again, if there are any questions, comments, or modifications or suggestions, we're prepared to address them this evening.
Okay.
We received the draft roughly 2 hours before the board meeting began. We have not had an opportunity to digest the latest draft, although I will say from the prior draft, we were very close to being in a position to recommend the document to this board. But I just don't know what this last draft says yet, so I don't think we're prepared to make a recommendation to the board at this time.
Okay. I just would like to get a quick advice of counsel.
Certainly.
Yeah, Peter's gonna come. Okay, are we ready? All right. We're back in session. Please take your seats.
For a
Again?
moment.
No, you can say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Peter, I just would like Peter to quickly summarize some of the stuff that we spoke. We also have the copy of the environmental study. I asked for 20 copies to be printed, and we're going to have it available outside. So these are the forms. What? You want it? You asked for it? I give it. Okay? Well, here you go.
Mayor, there were some comments earlier about how is it that people
I only have one
could
copy.
go
I have
about
other copies
objecting
outside.
to something that they don't like.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the answer is somewhat complicated, but it may be worth a brief review. And let me start by saying that I'm going to speak in some generalities. There are exceptions to everything. That's how lawyers make their living. So keep in mind that these are general principles. But broadly speaking, people can use their property for whatever the law permits. And you generally go to the zoning code to say, what is it that I'm allowed to do with this piece of property? You frequently start with what uses are permitted. Or is it only single-family homes? Is it multifamily homes? Is it religious institutions if I get a special permit? What is the permitted use? And secondly, there is a look at what type of structure can be built. Can it be 100 feet tall, 10 feet tall, 50 feet wide? Does it need a front yard setback, a rear yard setback, side yard setback? Those twin issues of use and structure are the grounding principles that you look at when you look at a zoning code and say, what am I allowed to do with property? By way of illustration only, the Mashadi application came in and said, we would like to have a religiously affiliated recreational facility. So the first question on the table becomes, is that a religious use such that it qualifies for a special use permit? Because if it does, then the Board of Trustees has the power to say, all right, if you meet conditions X, Y, and Z, then you are granted a special use permit. And the board doesn't start out by saying, would we like a religious institution there? It's the other way around. The zoning code starts out by saying that's a permitted use if it's a religious use. This particular religious facility, it has long been acknowledged that many recreational facilities are adjunct to a religious use. And without getting into a debate about whether or not this does or doesn't qualify for the religious use, it was this board's conclusion that it did qualify because it was adjunct to the religious use. And so that use issue is resolved. Again, it's not the board saying, oh, we would like to have a recreational facility. It's already permitted in the code. And all that the board's approval means is that the board has concluded that the applicant meets the criteria already set up in the code. Then you get to such things as the structure itself. The structure involves a site plan, and there are different hearings that have already been held on, and people who object to the site plan can speak to that issue. People who objected to the religious use determination, you could come in and say, I don't think it qualifies for reasons X, Y, and Z. And it's not a vote of the community, it's a vote of the Board of Trustees. Your input to your elected officials is your opportunity to object if you disagree with what the applicant is asking for. But it's not, is it a good idea, is it a bad idea? It's, does it meet the criteria for a permitted use? And then when it comes to site plan, does it meet the criteria for a lawful site plan? One of the few areas in which the board can say, I like it or I don't like it, is architectural design. generally, even that is guided by a principle of excessive similarity or excessive dissimilarity to other neighborhood structures. So at each one of these requests for a permission, there's a set of criteria that the board must follow. If the applicant meets the criteria, the board has to say yes. So the question on the table is, does the applicant meet the criteria? Not simply, is it a good idea or a bad idea? So in response to the question of how can I object to something, that's why the mayor was saying, well, what are your reasons for objecting? Are you objecting to use? Then you needed to object to the grant of the special use permit. Are you objecting to the height? Then you need to speak to whether or not that height is permitted under the code. And if it wasn't permitted under the code, did they get a variance? If you don't like the way that a roadway were set out in a subdivision development, you can object to a site plan. So there are different pieces to each application and different opportunities to voice an objection to that piece. But the objection should go to whether the application meets the criteria spelled out in the law, not simply I like it or I don't. The board doesn't have that kind of unbridled, unfettered discretion to simply say, I don't like your idea, I'm not going to let you use your property for that purpose. It generally doesn't work that way. As I said, exceptions to every rule, but those are some principles by which it might be helpful for the public to understand how do I go about objecting to something if I don't think it meets the right criteria. Mayor, I'd also note that, as was said before, although the law requires notification of meetings, and even those are for regularly scheduled meetings, meetings can be called on short emergency notice when the requirements dictate. Agenda items are not required to be posted in advance. Is it a good practice to let the public know at the earliest possible opportunity what the board plans on discussing? Sure it is, but it doesn't render a meeting illegal because you decided to discuss something at a point in time that it was fairly close to the meeting date. I hope those 2 points are helpful to the board and to the public.
Thank you. Okay.
Perhaps I should add one other thing. Our role as the village attorney is not to give legal advice to members of the public. It just isn't. Our role as the village attorney is to give legal advice to the board. Now, anybody can sue anybody for anything. One of the beauties of my profession. But well, as I said, there are exceptions to everything I said this evening. I was speaking in general terms. The opportunity to change the board's mind and persuade them that they shouldn't decide the way you think they might be deciding is at each one of these particular steps. Once the decisions are made, everything that just about anybody decides is always subject to somebody suing. But if the question on the table is, how can I persuade you, board members, not to vote for what I don't want you to vote for, then it gets down to, depending on what your objection is and which application you're looking at, does it or doesn't it meet the criteria? I will also tell you, in general terms, even a lawsuit, what the judge will look at is, did the board apply the statutory criteria to the decision it made? Even if I, the judge, would have made a different decision, broadly speaking, the judge says, but it wasn't my decision to make. If the board applied the proper criteria, then its decision will be upheld. Now again, there's always exceptions, but those, I think, are fairly sound, broadly accepted principles of law.
All right. Can we,
For the record, this is not the complete EAF form. The negative declaration is not included. I just, maybe it's an oversight, if you could correct that. Thank
we'll
you.
try to get to it, okay. Okay, so public hearing, or, no, we have 18 Brewer. Anyone is here for 18 Brewer? Yes.
I apologize. Can we please get it tonight?
Well, I don't know if you can get it tonight. We'll try to get it when we can. Okay. They discussed it. They discussed it, and it's going to be discussed before we have the CFOs given, before anything else. So it's going to be during the. I'm sure they're going to provide it. They need. Yes.
Mayor, there was some noise in the room before, but I will note for the minutes that there was a motion properly made, seconded, and unanimously passed to approve the architectural design.
Yes.
And additionally, I hope that the public heard that with respect to the parking waiver for Mashadi, the parking waiver is still conditioned upon the execution of the shuttle agreement. And the shuttle agreement, although I think we are very close to finalizing, is not yet fully finalized, and that is a condition of the parking waiver.
Right. Okay. Okay. Go ahead. You want to discuss 18 Brewer? Can we turn the phone off, please? Okay. All right, so this is a permit extension from 2016. The permit expired in 2018. Building superintendent recommended a fee, half of the fee. How much more time do you need to complete the structure?
I would say maximum would be 3 months.
Maximum would be 3 months.
Yes, hopefully less.
And what happens after 3 months if it's not completed?
We need to complete it.
I know you need to complete it, but I just want to make sure that this is not going to go for another 2 years.
We have everything in plan in order to complete it.
Right. Len, you've been at the site?
I've seen the house.
And the site is maintained properly?
Well, it's run down because there hasn't been any attention paid to it recently, but if they start construction, it will be cleaned up.
Do you have construction timeline in hand to know when you're starting?
I would start immediately.
You would start immediately.
As
so
soon
the
as
fund,
tomorrow
you
I
have the fund, and the contractors are ready to go.
Absolutely. The contractor was just here. He just left. He was tired.
Okay. 6 months. So they're saying 3 months, but okay. If we give 6 months, it's going to take us to December. Yeah. So are you done with the exterior? No.
We did 25% on the exterior.
25% of exterior.
Yes, I was planning to continue. However, I had a stop order. It wasn't my fault to.
Oh, it's your fault that the permit expired. I mean,
I
it's
wasn't aware of it. The contractor.
Right. So the question I have is that the outside is 25% done.
Oh.
The inside.
The inside is more of a 75% done.
So they did the inside before the outside?
No.
Okay. All right. Listen, if you're saying 3 months, he's believing 6 months. I'm okay.
I don't wish to go through another winter. I would like to end
I'm
this.
sure you don't, but yeah, okay. I think the amount that he's setting is fair. It's half the original price.
Which is what?
$4,820 to start the process. So I mean, I think the moment he has the okay from you, he can lift the stop order and you can go ahead. And
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. 6 months. So you said 3 months. We're giving you 6 months. I'm hoping that you'll be done by then.
Okay, thank you.
Lots of luck to you.
Thank you.
All right. Do we need to vote on that? Not really, right? No. Okay. Okay. Public hearing.
Is there a motion to convene a public hearing?
I move. Well, yeah, if they're quick. Is there anybody waiting for the liquor license? I don't think so. Okay,
so we're
so
going
let's
to
just do
adjourn.
quickly. Paul, you're here for Middlebrook?
I'm here for
Okay.
Middlebrook.
So we'll go to the new business quickly. I'm sorry, Paul, just quickly so we can get them out.
505 Middleman Road, an application, they've applied to the state super.
Which one is 505?
Chosen Village.
Chosen, okay.
Chosen.
Yeah, okay.
So we're
Yeah. We okay. Okay, no action. Next. Gold Coast International Film Festival.
The film festival, seeking permission to hang the banner the week of October 1st. The festival is November 4th to the 13th.
Do we have the banner? Yeah. Okay. And it's going to be hung where?
Across Middlebrook Road.
Where's it going to be? You know where the banner is going to be? Across from where? Middlebrook Court? It's going to be right there? Okay. And they've done this before. I've seen this before. Okay. Okay.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion
Is there a motion to permit a banner under Article 22 of the zoning code for the period of November 4th to November 13th?
Moved by Trustee
Moved by
Mendelson.
Trustee Mendelson, seconded by Trustee Hope. All in favor?
Aye. And okay, so that one we're going to have to wait. No, I guess we do the. Well, that I think we should do the public. I don't know which one's going to take longer.
No, there's one underneath that.
Where is the resolution to extend the duration of the local law? Right. So let's do that quickly as well, so we can just have everything. So if anyone's waiting for it.
Mayor, is there a motion to extend the local law suspending all approvals related to residential subdivisions for a period of 6 months pursuant to local law number 2 of 2019 and subject to any comments from the Nassau County Planning Commission?
I move.
All in favor? Any opposed? Passes.
Okay, so let's go back to the public hearing, 240, 250 Middle Neck Road, Millbrook. I believe they're making some amendments to the parking.
Mayor,
Yeah.
I would just ask if there's a motion to open a public
I
hearing
thought we
on this
did. Okay,
matter.
go ahead.
Is there a motion? Moved by Trustee Hope, seconded by Trustee Mendelson. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none. This hearing is officially opened.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, Paul Bloom, Harris Bloom and Archer, 445 Broad Hollow Road, Melville, New York, appearing on behalf of North Shore Millbrook, 240, 250 Middle Neck Road. Let me begin by saying that this project has been approved, the resolution of this board. We are here this evening to make a minor modification to the site plan and also for an additional parking waiver associated with the changes in the site plan. The project was approved by this board for a 186 unit complex consisting of originally 119 units, 85 of the existing units to remain, 101 new additional units for a total of 186. What we are proposing this evening is 186 units with 247 parking stalls. Currently, we are utilizing approximately 1.13 parking stalls for every unit that exists on the site right now. That's 119 units, and our parking ratio is 1.13 parking stalls. What we are proposing and asking with respect to a modification of the site plan, which we'll go into in greater detail, will provide for 186 units, 1.32. So we are actually increasing the per unit parking stalls, even with the reduction that we're asking this evening, than currently exists. I know that the mayor has expressed during the course of the, in this case, very numerous hearings that we have had with respect to the initial application, a concern for the existing residents who are going to remain. And all of the remaining units, the 85 units, can, at their choice, rent a reserved spot, but are not obligated to rent a reserved spot. all of the 101 new units that are being created are required to, and will, as part of their rent, be renting at least one of the parking stalls that we're going to be providing. What we are proposing is a situation where currently there are 24 spots which are open and available, not rented, which is on a proportional basis 0.20 for the 119 units. The 85 units that will remain increases the parking. We will have 20 stalls for 85 units. We have 24 stalls for 119 units. And so that the percentage of available parking, free parking for those people who are current residents, who will continue to be residents, will be increasing from 0.20 to 0.24. Why are we asking for this modification? And in greater detail, I'm going to ask the architects to please make their presentation. But the overview is this. We initially received permission from this board to, in one of the structures, have 2 levels of parking. That 2 levels of below-grade parking entailed an extreme amount of additional soil that needed to be disturbed and to be taken off the premises. This also related to more vehicles, more trucks that would be coming to the site and removing the soil from the site. By eliminating the second level, the lower level of the 2-level parking, not only do we no longer disturb a major portion of the site, no longer do we reduce the number of trucks that are going to be carrying soil from the site, but we are able to then maintain the general contour of the property as it currently exists, and again, in an environmental sense, create less of a construction impact on the site. I'm going to ask Brian Newman, who is the architect on the project, to explain in more detail exactly what we're proposing. But I believe the underlying aspect here is not only are we doing something which is environmentally more favorable to this project and for the people who are going to be living there and for the village as a whole, but we are increasing the per unit parking that is available for the current residents that the mayor, you have expressed to us during the course of the many hearings that you have concern that they are going to be losing parking as opposed to gaining. So, Brian, would you introduce yourself?
Good evening, Brian Newman from Newman Design, principal. We are the architects of record. Myself, with my associate Robert Treasure, who is the lead project architect, will take you through the minor changes. At first glance, when you're looking at this, from this perspective, nothing has changed. I want to be very clear. Entrance, egress, entrance and egress, Middlebrook Court, none of that has changed. The road around the site has not changed. The buildings have not changed. The architecture of the buildings have not changed. The units have not changed. What has changed is below grade. Okay, everything that the public eye basically sees has not changed, with the exception of grades. While this used to slope down dramatically to get underneath this building, to get the vehicles in there, that now follows the natural contour of the site. That's why this is sort of highlighted in pink. At this point, it was low and it came back up high. We've essentially, and you had to have retaining walls around here. We've essentially matched the existing grade over here. And we followed the grade. We made this a tiny bit steeper over here to reduce the amount of retaining walls that we had back here. But essentially, it still slopes down.
Just to be clear, Middle Neck Road is
I
on
apologize.
the right-hand side.
Middle Neck Road's up at the top.
Up top, sorry, yes.
Yes.
That's the entrance.
Yes. Existing Middle Neck Court. So we've increased the slope of this grade slightly to reduce the retaining walls along the back. We used to have an entrance underneath this building to get to the lower level, or the second lower level of this parking garage. That's been eliminated. The grade comes around still. None of this has changed. This used to drop deeper. We've essentially pulled it up slightly, and allows us and enables us to maintain access to these existing garages behind this building. Other than that, it has remained unchanged. So as you're driving by, walking by, standing in here, everything is exactly as it was as previously approved.
Brian, would you point out, we've set aside the 20 parking stalls which are available to the existing and remaining residents. Could you please point out the 3 locations that are available for those people to park their vehicles?
Okay. Sorry. So in the center of Middlebrook Court, there are 10 spaces right here, right down the middle. On this area out here, outside, there are 5 additional. And in this corner over here, 5 additional spaces as well. So those are the 20.
Was that done for any particular purpose by separating these parking areas?
So by having these parking spaces, basically, as opposed to lumped in one location, they're now dispersed throughout the site for access for all units throughout the site.
So you mentioned that there are a certain number of parking stalls that are for purchase or for rent.
Correct.
And there are certain ones that are about 20 or so that are available for public use without purchase.
That is correct.
And you have you have increased the available number of parkings for the current residents by how many stalls?
Well, the number of stalls has decreased from 24 to 20, but the number of units have decreased from 119 to 85. And so the 85 units now have 20 stalls available to them, whereas before 119 had to share 24.
And how many stalls are available for purchase? For rent.
20 less. 227.
227, of which a certain number, which is what number, is dedicated to the new buildings?
Well, of the 101 new units, each of those units must, as part of their lease, these are new tenants who are going in the new buildings, must rent at least one spot.
So it's 100 and?
101.
101, and you said how many?
227 left.
227.
And 20 not assigned.
Right, so 227 minus 101, so that's the number of units that are left for rent by whomever, number of spaces.
That
left.
is correct. So if there are those people who want a second spot, there are spots available for
And
second.
people that are in the current buildings that may not have one, they have the opportunity to rent a space.
That
so
is
they have a
correct.
dedicated space.
And I didn't want to complicate this, but as long as you open the door. Of the 85 units that are remaining, the greater percentage of the people who are remaining of that 85 currently do rent.
They are renting already?
They are renting already.
Uh-huh.
And so the numbers
So
are...
they are renting from the ones that we're discussing that are left?
No, they are...
126.
Of the 119 units, we're going to be left with 85. Of those 85, those people currently rent spots for themselves as reserved spots. So we're taking worst case scenario when we say for the 85, we're giving you now 20 as opposed to for 119.
Because some of them already are renting.
They
Okay.
are already
Got it.
renting.
Okay. I mean, obviously the board wishes that, I know that this is, the construction is going to be a difficult period of time for the people that are living there. I personally, and I'm sure the board, would like to make sure that at least the parking spots and the parking scenario is not really going to contribute difficulty to the people who are already there, that are going to deal with the next stages of the construction.
The plans that the board originally approved included logistic plans and plans during the stages of construction, which indicated that spots would be available during construction. But the point you're making now also goes to the other issue I raised before, and that is the construction time will be significantly reduced by the fact that we are not now digging down. And I think people have to appreciate the fact that you may have a 20 or 40 yard truck, and there's going to be a heck of a lot of soil coming out if we had to go down to 2 levels.
Where are you putting the new parkings? If you can show me the new parking stalls that you're putting in.
The 20 stalls?
The new ones. You're creating new stalls, correct?
No, some of them are existing stalls.
I know, but the new ones. Are you putting any new ones? Are you adding to the parking that you have currently? Are you increasing the number of the parking stalls?
Yes.
Okay, where are those going to be?
You mean for the overall project, where are we creating parking spaces?
Right.
So essentially we have Middlebrook Court, which has parking.
Mhm.
You have 5 surface parking spaces here. You have 5 additional surface parking spaces here. Parking garage below this building, and parking garage below Middlebrook Court and underneath this building. Access at this point, access in that point.
Okay, so there's going to be parking spots below the building that is all the way at the end of the Middlebrook Court. It's not going to go under any other buildings, correct?
The west garage
Uh-huh.
has access from here. It goes underneath this section,
Right.
as well as up underneath Middlebrook Court. It does not go underneath the existing buildings.
Right.
There's existing garage
Because
under
I
here.
tell you why I'm asking. There was a concern that was brought up to me that the residents are concerned that they will be digging under their existing building to put in parking stalls.
That was an accurate statement in the previous version. There was access from this garage,
Mhm.
underneath this garage, or through this garage, underneath this section to get into
Got
one
it.
of the previous lower levels to this garage. We've since eliminated that.
Right, okay, great, thank you.
He's not going down 2 levels, but he's
Yeah.
going down 1 level.
Right. Can I ask that, what the water level is?
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask that question again. I mean, I'm sure it's not going down. How low are you going on that, on Middlebrook Court to get the parking,
Under Middlebrook Court?
yeah,
We're lowering it about 12 feet below grade.
12 feet below grade?
Sorry, about 12 feet below grade.
So how does that affect the water level?
We're way above the water table, at least 20 feet above the
Yeah,
water table.
that's way too low. Okay.
We were able to have the second level. We were able to have the second level of parking and still be above the water table at that point. Now, with the elimination of that second level, we are that much higher above the water table.
Okay. Any comments from the board?
So can you repeat the total number of spots that we're talking about?
247 total spaces.
So they're decreasing the available ones for public that is not required for purchase or for rent from 24 to 20, but they're decreasing the number of units from, you're decreasing the number of units from
119 to 85.
119 to 85, which is about 34 units. So decreasing the number of units by 34 for those parking spots, and they're decreasing the number of stalls by 4. So they're increasing the ratio of parking spots available for those units.
That is correct.
Okay, all right, got it. And that, explain that again? Okay, was I clear? Anyone has a question on it? I'll repeat it one more time. The number of the units that are getting decreased, the current units, the way the existing units is going down from 119 to 85. The number of the stalls available for those units is going down from 24 to 20. So even though you're decreasing the number by 20 because you're decreasing the number by 4, by 4 to 20, you're increasing the ratio of available parking spots for those 85. So if it's going to be, let's say, 24 divided by 120 minus 85 divided by 20, right? Yeah, 119 divided by 24 and 85 divided by 20, that's the difference in the ratio. Okay. Is that clear? I think that's clear. It's clear to me. It's clear to me, should be clear to everybody. I hope. Okay. All right. Question from the public. Yeah. Okay. Wait a minute. Do we need, the public comments is open. Yeah. Again, I just want to say this is regarding the changes that they're making to the parking, not to the facade, not to the site plans or anything else. Go ahead.
Tricia Moslin.
You can just bring it down.
Tricia Moslin, 15 Southgate. So how many cars are going to be displaced now during construction? Because I know there are a lot of activities on the street. So I'm just curious if you're saying now, because of whatever you're doing, there's going to be less cars being forced on the street.
So, and to follow that question, I'm sure that the construction does not happen at once. It's going to happen in stages, and I think probably it's not a bad idea for somebody to explain how they're going to do it for people not to be displaced even for a short period of time.
I don't have the logistics plan here with me, and obviously it was prepared by the general contractor, but they were doing so in a sequencing where they're staging. Obviously, they're building one building at a time or excavating one area at a time and working their way around the site, maintaining a safe environment for all residents. That was indicated on there with temporary protection and sidewalks and sidewalk bridging to protect all residents, at the same time ensuring that the emergency service vehicles had access to the site, God forbid something happened, while residents were living there. Whether or not it was construction related, EMS and EMT and emergency service vehicles needed to gain access. So all those things have been addressed, and obviously, as I just stated, it would be done one project or one building at a time, working their way around the site.
Okay. Jean?
So do I understand that every resident that rents an apartment would have space for one car or two cars?
Every resident, the new residents or all the other ones?
Either, the whole complex. Each apartment would have how many parking spaces?
At least one, that the new ones, they have to rent one, and they have to rent one.
Yes.
Well, let me ask. I mean, if someone,
if there's a father and mother or a grown, son living there, and they have two cars.
so let me ask you a question. What happens if you buy a house, which we have? You've heard many times that they have one car garage and they have two cars.
We're not buying a house.
No, but I'm just saying, it's easy. But you see, Gene, you have to realize, if you're buying a house, you're pretty much stuck with that parking, situation. If you're renting, you can decide not to rent in that place.
No, my question was how many, they will only have one space per unit?
The new ones should have one space. The people that are there currently, they are renting, and I think the ones who are not renting, the ratio increases. But you can give the exact number.
The ratio is increasing, but I think the answer to the question is there's 247 spots that are being proposed. Take 20 away from them, and then one spot for each 20 being the ones that we are setting aside for anybody who wants to park there.
So that's
And
left
this-
127.
That's correct. And now we've got from, actually it's 126 because it's 101.
Okay.
So you've got one stall for each one of the 101. That brings you down to a number where you take the 247, which is the total number, take 101 away because everybody has to get one, which then comes out to 146. Take the 20 away, which leaves 126 additional spots that are available for people to rent. So for 101 units. So
Okay.
you have enough here for having two for each unit.
That's
If
right,
in
you
fact-
just talk plain. So each apartment would have at least one spot, correct?
Right.
But there is a possibility
Of having a second
that
one.
they could have a second one.
True.
So there will not be any parking on the streets, correct?
Well, that area already allows for parking in the street, but they cannot park anywhere else because we're going to enforce the code that does not allow parking overnight. And I believe around that area is 2-hour parking, I think it is. So, and no overnight parking except one section that was left there, I think, a while ago. So people in that area can park on Middle Neck Road, but everywhere else cannot.
So whoever wants to move into these new apartments will have the understanding before they sign an agreement.
Yes.
They only get one parking spot.
Well, they
and if
have
you
to get one,
Yeah.
like it or not, I guess, from what I'm hearing. And then the second one, they can rent as well. So they can rent 2 spaces if they wish. Comments?
Good evening.
Hi.
My father, his
Name and address, please.
Sure. My name is Elham Sharga. My parents are living in 21 Middlebrook Court, apartment B31. He's 90 years old, and his apartment has 30 steps to go up to his apartment. He is a handicap, and he was having a stroke 2 times. And every time that he has to come up and down, he fell down from the step few times. And the doctor, I have the letter here from the doctor that he has to be on the first floor, that because few times he get hurt and he cannot go up and down the steps. And because of that, he doesn't come out of the apartment because every time we have to bring him up and down, something is happening. And I'm requesting, please, if they could help him and give him first floor, that he could come out of the house and doesn't get hurt. He there for 15 years. He never asked for renovation. He never asked for painting. He never asked for anything. This is only his request. His only request that he want to be in the first floor, that he could come out of the house, and I really appreciate if they could help.
I know this may not be the forum to discuss it, but I can ask the attorney who's here, and if that can be conveyed.
It will be conveyed to management. Obviously, logistics are an issue.
My friend is a doctor.
Yes.
I don't know.
Because of, I'm sorry. Okay.
Let him just finish.
Yes, I don't know what availability there is for a first floor unit in one of the units that are going to be remaining. If in fact there is a unit, I don't know if he has a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom unit. So there are issues that are associated with it. I can assure the board that this will be taken seriously, and if there is an accommodation that we can make, it will be made with respect to the situation.
Your father's here?
Yes, my father is here,
Oh.
and he doesn't work. They don't have any income. They cannot go anywhere else.
Oh,
They
if-
cannot pay any.
If he has to work at
anything.
age 90, yeah.
Yeah, and they can't pay for whatever they pay now. He doesn't have any income. They don't work or anything.
All right. Well, I'm glad that Paul mentioned that he will, relay that message to the management. And I'm hoping that they can do something, especially with what's going to be with the traffic and the construction. I think it would definitely benefit the.
I will say that management will be sympathetic and will do whatever
Karen?
is conceivable that can be done.
I really gonna be appreciated if they could help him and bring him like.
All right.
First floor apartment. I really gonna. Be
You have the number of the management? You have spoken to them before?
The management, I do have the number, but sometimes they say they don't have, and if they want to give it to him, they want to increase it very high, and they don't have any income to pay. They cannot pay, and whatever they pay. And they told us there is somebody's, I don't know, like his age 90 years or something. We have to wait that this guy is going to pass away, and maybe they're going to give him any apartment that he passed away. I cannot wait. Maybe the
Okay.
old man, he's going to be 100, 120
okay.
years.
Maybe 105 like my mother.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul, just do me a favor if you can look into it.
We will give serious attention, but obviously there's a question of availability. And so we can't throw somebody else out and put them in.
True.
There is, I know there is some apartment that are available in the first floor, and I see that there are some apartment is empty, and I see there is a lot of people that are moving from here, from there, but my parents are there for 15 years. They never asked for anything, but he's a handicap. He's falling down every time, and I have a letter from the doctor office. He cannot go up and down, and he's getting depression in the house because we cannot take him out.
We will do what we can do.
Thank you so much.
All
I
right,
really
thank you.
appreciate it.
All right, thank you. All right. Any other comments related to the parking spots? Yep. Jenny, just for the sake of people who are watching, if you can ask it so we can.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the modifications being made. Does it involve adding entrance or exit ways to the lot?
So currently, there is a curb cut in this location, one in the center, and one on this end of the site. We're maintaining those curb cuts. We're just changing the traffic pattern. So 3 points of entry to the site, or 3 curb cuts to the site, and entrance in this location. Traffic will work its way around it and out. And this is an ingress and egress in the center of Middlebrook Court.
So the current curb cuts allow cars to go in and out, or no?
I'm not exactly sure. I believe they come in and out now from wherever they want, but I have not done a traffic study on the current traffic pattern of the vehicles coming in and out.
Just as an answer to
Okay. Thank you.
There are three locations. Middlebrook Court has an in and out. That's the center. That is the center entrance. There is no restricted in only and out only, which is a relatively dangerous situation with cars coming in and out. The new traffic pattern isolates a specific entrance, which is at the south entrance, and an exit at the north entrance. This was designed also with the mind of where the traffic control devices are, so that the entrance and exits are at safe locations and also maintains a flow of traffic as opposed to conflict of traffic.
So the new south and north, I guess, entrance or traffic pattern, would that involve cars going into the parking lot from Middleneck Road? Because I don't believe that currently happens.
It does happen, and so they would just continue to go in and out on Middlebrook in the same fashion that has been happening?
The center area, Middlebrook Court, or whatever the new name is going to be designated, is in fact a two-way in and out. It is that way now. It will continue to be that way. The two other curb cuts, north and south,
It's
which
going to
are
be
currently
enter and exit.
which are being currently used as both entrance and exits, which has the potentiality of conflicts of vehicles, will now be changed so that there will be one in, one out.
So there's no additional means to get in or out under this
No,
revision?
they're not adding any curb cuts.
Well, there's actually a restriction.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, because in other words, the south
no,
is
she's
in and
asking
the
if there's
north is.
any new site. No
Right,
new
but
site.
there's less.
Right, the
Because
sites stay
you're
the
only
same.
having 2 in as opposed to 3 in.
Right, but again, we're not changing the curb cuts. There's not going to be extra cars coming in or extra cars coming out. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Brigitte Parizeau. I live in Middlebrook Court, 12 Middlebrook Court. I just asked them to turn the black one to show us the traffic because I'm living here. I don't understand.
Okay.
So
No, wait. Just wait there so we can see. He's going to explain.
Okay.
Middlebrook Court will remain the same, in and out, in the center.
Okay.
The south, you enter in the south, you will be able to drive around
Yes.
the site. You can enter in here
Yes.
and get into a parking garage underneath, or continue here and get into these existing garages underneath that building. Currently, you kind of go through the parking lot and go into that. Or you continue out here. There's also an entrance into a parking garage under this building.
Oh, okay. So on
The general traffic goes all the way around.
so one parking will be under. Okay.
Not under the current buildings, under the new building.
Under this new building and under this new building.
Right.
Okay.
So nobody, if you're there already, and I'm assuming you're staying there, your building is not going to be affected by parking underneath the way it used to be before, which is a great thing, I think. For
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Hearing none. Again, I would. Yeah. One more.
I just have one quick comment. The entrance to Middlebrook Court is still the same.
Yes.
Now, right now, cars come inside and go around the circle and go out. How do they make a U when there's a building where the circle is right now?
Uh huh.
There's a.
Nancy
Yeah.
Sharifi, 11 Middlebrook Court.
So there's only a few spots, as I had mentioned before,
Right.
along here. And at the end, it widens to a T, so
Right.
you can make the turnaround down here and come back.
Yeah, but UPS truck come, regular moving trucks, like big trucks. Are they able to really make a U?
Well, yes, there's enough room for your standard delivery truck to come in here, but keep in mind, the traffic pattern is different now on this proposed plan, where we have this traffic loop all the way around the site. So no longer do all the.
Yeah, but
the
the
traffic-
UPS truck can't go around.
Yeah. No.
Yes, it can. So a UPS truck could come in here and drive all the way around.
Okay.
If they needed to and get out. They could come in here, they could stop here, they
How
can
do they
access.
deliver the packages?
I'm telling you.
Go ahead.
They can stop here and they could deliver for anything along here, right? He can pull in here, he could deliver to anything here and here, they could come along here and deliver anything into this building. They could come in here and make a turn and come back out. So there's a number of options.
Okay, as long as,
Just to say, I think if a fire truck can come in and should be able to come in and make that loop, UPS trucks are a lot smaller.
Right.
So they should be able to make that loop as well.
Okay, if that's wide enough, then
If it's not wide enough, they're not getting a building.
I'm sure.
Okay. All right. But that's a good comment. Thank you. All right.
Rebecca Rosenblatt Gilliar, I have a question. This has gone to the fire departments to approve anything that has to.
The answer to that question is that there is a complete firematics program with respect to this site. we had hired a firematics professional who met with the local fire department. Some of the buildings that are currently existing had to be shaved back, in fact, the units removed, so that we can conform to both ladder truck movements within and also the outriggers that are going to be placed on there. So there is, and check the file, go foil it, you're going to see sheet upon sheet of firematic studies with respect to access and also availability for medical and also fire.
And I would assume that that includes how many vehicles can come and go at the same time, right?
Take a look at the traffic study.
Okay, I don't have to look at it, I only have to listen to you, Mr. Bloom.
You're in trouble.
Oh, I'm just going to set it down.
Good. Any other comments, concerns? Okay. Again, I would like to address the management and you. I know that this is a interesting proposal that has come in. It is being built as of right as far as the number of the units, but the concern is there how the people who are currently living there are being are going to get affected in a negative way by just the construction and the trucks and all that. I am really asking to make sure that whatever can be done to decrease those negative impacts on the current renters to be to be diminished as much as possible.
That message will be delivered to management. I believe that, first of all, I will say that this is a management group that is very familiar with this type of a project and also building in these types of situations. I think I've mentioned on the record previously when we received our approvals that the ownership of this property dates back to, I believe, 1950s. This building was built approximately 1947, 1948. So the current management, the family current management of this property has been consistent through all those years. These are people who are not new to the project. They know the project. They know the people who live there. And they are concerned with respect to the welfare. At the end of the day, though, my feeling is that we are going to have something very proud at what I would call the gateway to our village. And to that extent, I believe it is an enhancement. I'll just throw one other little item in here. This project is under density. We are not at maximum density. So this is not an over-intensification of the site, but again, that was something that was discussed and voted upon by this board originally. I thank you for your attention. I anticipate this board will grant us our amended site plan approval and the parking waiver, and we would like to pull permits and start work immediately.
Right. I don't like to do this again, but I'm going to ask for another advice of counsel before we go through the approval. Shoot, why did I do that?
Yes, I remember who you are. I see all the emails that are going back between our architect and you.
Yeah, they have been very helpful. I just want to clarify one thing about you just said. So you said the plan was to add 2 levels, but now you're eliminating that second level, right? So are you talking about the garage or the garage? Okay. Thanks.
Don't quote me.
Well, you
Unless you're quoting me from the record. The answer is the second is below grade garage.
Okay. Oh, right. That's why the dirt and that all makes sense. All right. Thanks. So I guess we didn't make a decision about the
They both. There was so much noise going out that nobody heard them.
Oh, they put it on there?
Yes.
They put it in?
They did.
Okay, I'll check.
Don't quote me.
I'll check this later.
I am doing well.
So I'm taking up all your time for your beautiful project. Listen, I'm very angry. Very angry. You know why I'm angry? I'm very angry because now I have to go all the way to Great Neck Plaza where there's no parking and no availability to go and do my banking. In fact, to the point where I said to my wife, I'm changing banks. I'm going to go to Chase. Nice to meet you, Paul.
Nice to meet you, Paul. Nice to meet you. I've heard a lot. He doesn't want it either. We don't want that.
I am sure you have. I'm sure you have. There was, I think, some real estate division decision that why should we stuck up in this end of the village, and we gotta be, you know, with our on the corner with the big sign, et cetera, et cetera. I truly believe that's what happened. That there's going to be some fall off to some of the businesses. They'll pick up whatever they fall off here. They're going to pick up twice as much down there. But my wife was literally saying to me, what are we going to do? Go 4 o'clock in the morning so that we have a place to go to an ATM machine?
Not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea.
You wake up early. Why not? Call me at night.
Well, actually, yeah. I get up early to go to my physical therapy, so I'll do it on the way to or from.
It's a stair. It's a new building. There's a parking garage here.
No, we have a lot. We have a lot of money.
There's a parking garage right here. I heard.
Doing your reading.
So if you look here, you can easily just go down there. There's nothing. There's one little stair tower here. Frankly, there's a little one all the way back here. This is that one. That's
I was told, and I don't know if it's correct, that they were basically short and thrift and said, okay, on our negotiation, we're not going forward, and push it down. Not you. You were on it already. That's what they said. And we were in negotiation for a while. These are really down. But as we went into further
independent structures.
where we started,
Which sections independent? There's an entrance here to 4 units, right? And there's a wall with 3 units, entrance here, just additional
Well, no, people only hear what they see. And so, and what we would know was, landlord told us the last minute, et cetera, et cetera. The bottom line is, there was no question, the size
I know.
it's contracted.
So also that it wasn't and they have sold part of it. Actually, they sold their customer's place to CVS across.
They sold it to me, which is, I told them, thank you very much, but I'm not paying for it.
So you were a patron and
I've been living here for 45 years or thereabouts. And it was always my feeling that I'm.
But the stair is finished the same quarter.
And so, I'm gonna pay for it. I don't put up, 90% of the time, they don't Just so that he can get in as a rated tenant. What he had to do to get his ACE was use preference. What he had to do to extract the paper is outrageous. But he can do that because his cost basis is so much lower. You come in as a professional, and our cost basis is literally having real estate taxes, mortgage, he can do that because his cost basis is under $20. Exactly. I mean, and then they own that property going back for 100 years. So we don't have that luxury. If we had that luxury, we'd be more than happy to do that. It's just you need red also. And it makes no sense. Meanwhile, who I thought would be the prime candidate was Evergrande expanding because they keep talking about they don't have enough room. They don't want to spend on that's right. And they do things a little bit out of norm, which they want to senior sites from the senior homes to 2% of it for the next 25 years. They don't want to pay money. Right. It's unrealistic.
Can't let him use it, and he just locks it. I go to take it. Okay, let's do it. Okay, okay, yeah. All right. We're back in session. Um, with the permission of the board and the audience, I would like to table this matter until the end of the meeting. Where's Karen? Okay. We're going to move on to item C.
Mayor,
Yeah.
do I understand that the public hearing is being temporarily
Tabled.
held over while
Right.
you address other board items? So it'd be temporarily closed.
Until the
but
end
to
of
be
this, right.
reopened and the same tonight.
Yes.
Correct. Is that unanimous from the board? Temporarily closing the vote. Thank you.
Would it be possible to do a point of order before you move on?
We're going to the point of order. In what aspect do you want to have a point of order?
Referring back to something that happened before.
Well, you can get that about in this topic or a different topic?
No, just on the original, their very first item that was on your agenda, may I do a point of order?
I don't think I want to take, because it's 10:30 and we have a lot. So you can do the point of order at the public
I can't though. I can't stay because I have to be someplace upstate tomorrow.
But you know what? I tell you, the attorney has to leave, so does Karen. So if
That's why it's a legal question, so I'm
one of
asking.
them will stay. So you can ask, you can address Darnell.
Yeah, but this is a public hearing and I wanted it to be that
But
the public knows.
you're going to have the chance to continue, but we are just temporarily tabling it as he mentioned. You will get back to it. We're not discussing this, we're discussing the next topic. You can.
No, I'm saying, I'm asking.
I hear what you're saying.
I'm asking for a point of order, which is, I just want to ask a question about something that happened before, and I'm done.
I say no,
understood
but
that
it
tonight's
doesn't, it doesn't
meeting-
work.
I understood that tonight's meeting on the first item was supposed to be about the shuttle buses.
No.
Correct?
No, it wasn't about shuttle buses. It was supposed to be about the architectural review.
Right, and then you said.
And they were going to mention the shuttles. They said that they have it. It was sent to them. Nothing is going to be approved until the shuttle bus is approved.
Okay, so that's my question. My point of order is, will the shuttle buses be on the agenda at the next meeting for discussion in the public space by the public?
I don't think that's necessary, but we can I don't think it's necessary to